Satisfactory can be an incredibly overwhelming experience for new players to the automation genre. So with Satisfactory releasing to console today, I thought it appropriate to share 21 non-spoiler tips to help new players master their factories. So if you've already been acquainted with the game, this probably isn't for you. However, given your experience, why not let the new players know your top tips for starting out in the comments below. So let's jump straight into it. Now, starting off, you'll have access to 4 different starting zones. These are all part of the same map. However, for a new player, I would argue that the best location is the grassy fields. It has plenty of space to build factories in, and more importantly, the resource nodes are impure or normal, which is actually great when you're getting started, and it also gives you a reason to go out and explore new areas later on. However, if you are looking for a starting location with more resources, so you don't need to explore so much, I do recommend the Rocky Desert also, which has a lot of space and lots of pure resources, as well as a wealth of other resources nearby, like oil. Now, as you explore, you will encounter stingers. These are arachnid type creatures, but if you can't stand spiders yourself, have no worry. There is arachnophobia mode, which can be accessed in the settings, replacing them with holograms of cats. Or failing that, if you really can't stand them, you can actually remove them completely from the game in the advanced game settings. Now, following on from this, you can also choose whether you want other creatures to be aggressive towards you, retaliate, or be completely peaceful. The default is aggressive, but some people prefer just a relaxing factory build setting, in which case peaceful is probably better for you. Now, if you struggle with the UI color when it comes to building, you can change the colors in the game settings under user interface. Use these settings to change opacity and the color of the holograms. Personally, I prefer my building hologram to be white, as it's easier to see the inputs and outputs of mergers and splitters. Now, Satisfactory is an automation game, but to get you started, it is possible to handcraft almost all items, except for space elevator parts and liquids or gases. These can all be done in the crafting bench, and it's useful in a pinch, but do try to automate everything as you get access to them, and then send these items to storage for access later on, as you will need a lot of resources for the various hub tiers. Now, surprisingly, most new players quit before getting to coal power, with only 37% of players actually hitting the first space elevator tier since 1.0. So if you find yourself struggling with the game but don't want to give up, do check out my guided playthrough. I go through every step of the game on a dedicated playlist, and we go from the very basics in the first episode and work our way to more advanced techniques and layouts later on, covering things like trains, signaling, liquids, and even planning larger factories. And the response to the series so far has been really positive. Now, I'll link the first 2 episodes in the description below in case that appeals to you. Now, when it comes to powering your factories, biomass generators are the first power generators that we have access to. These burn leaves and wood to generate power. However, as soon as you access obstacle clearing, it is more efficient to turn the foliage into biomass and then solid biofuel to burn off in these generators, meaning you'll need to refill the storage that's feeding these biomass generators less frequently, saving you time to focus on the factory. Now, after you complete the first space elevator tier, you'll have access to coal power. Focus on setting it up first, as this will allow you to start fully automating your setups without needing to keep feeding the biomass generators. It can also be hugely beneficial to keep your power plant on a separate power grid, so that if your power trips, you'll not need to worry about restarting the whole system. You can just pause some buildables to turn the system back on, or should you wish, just add more power production buildings to the system. Now, if you don't do this, it can be difficult to restart power. So to separate your grid, have a single coal power plant connected to a power pole and to your coal miner and water extractors. These shouldn't be connected to anything else, and then you can connect the rest of your power plants to your main factory. If the power trips up, that single coal power plant should have enough power to keep running the miner and the water to ensure you don't need to restart everything, and then once your overheads are even with your power expense, it will just turn back on. Now, while I do enjoy sharing tips and tricks on how to build clean, efficient factories, when you're first starting out in the game, just make the most of the experience. It's your first time, and it is such an incredible game to experience. So don't worry about the mess that you've made with spaghetti or even the efficiency of your builds. Just embrace its imperfection. Just enjoy the game at first. If, however, you really can't bear messy layouts and want to keep everything efficient, do check out my video on early game layouts to use in your factory, as it'll get you off to a strong start. Now, when it comes to building your first factories, you may think you only need, say, a 10 by 10 grid when it comes to your foundations. This is almost always not the case. Always give yourself more space than you think you'll need. And yes, you should be building on foundations just because it makes everything so much easier to build and keep aligned. Now, when it comes to running your first factories, there are two main methods of feeding your production buildings. There's the manifold and there's balancing. There's also hybrid versions of this, but we're not going to talk about them here. Now, they are both exactly the same in terms of resource efficiency. However, balancers immediately run at 100%, splitting the resources equally between each buildable that's producing items. The manifold, however, is much simpler at setting up, and it feeds each production building in sequence, but as such, the first few producers receive more resources until the buffers inside the machines are full, at which point the lines will then run efficiently. However, this does mean that it takes a few minutes to set up and run at full efficiency, as the last few producers are initially starved for resources. No method is better, they're just different and more suited in different circumstances. Generally speaking, I'll go with the manifold version unless it's balancing resources that may be radiated later on in the game. Now, when exploring, collect any slugs, as they'll be used for early game power shards, which will allow you to overclock buildables. Also collect any summer sloop or mercer spheres that you come across, as they'll be needed for some powerful upgrades to your factory, which I won't ruin the surprise for you here. And another point is that the drop pods hold hard drives, which you can research to unlock new recipes in the MAM. You just need to make sure that you have the requirement to unlock them. Speaking of the MAM, you can use this to unlock new research as well as recipes, as I just mentioned, but also equipment outside of the hub tiers, such as Nobelisk. These can be used to destroy gas plants and gas rocks, as well as cracked boulders, making it easier to explore. If you're playing with friends, you can change your color and outfit in the hub so you don't get confused with who's who. Now, when it comes to painting your factory using the customizer, the first factory swatch is the default swatch. If you change this swatch's color, any buildable with that swatch will change color. There's also a single custom swatch which can be used to paint buildables, which won't change color if you change the custom swatch color. And when you start building factories, try not to merge different resources onto a single line. It's easier, at least when starting off, just to keep each line as a dedicated resource line. These can then be sent to storage, and if you've unlocked smart splitters in the MAM, you can then set an overflow line to send excess resources once the storage is full to go to the awesome sink. And this is useful as awesome sinks sink excess resources in return for coupons, which can be traded in at the awesome shop for various decorational pieces to be used in your factory, whether that's new materials for walls and foundations, roofing types, or walls and pillar types. Anyway, I hope these tips have helped you to get to grips with the game, and if you're wondering what to watch next, why not check out my personal Let's Play from the very beginning and see how crazy the game can get after a couple of 100 hours. But guys, thanks for watching, and thanks as always to all of our incredible supporters on Patreon, most notably our Lunars, Firefless the Calamity, Ben, and Star, as well as our Blood Moon of the day, which today is Brain Slug. Until next time, as always, ciao for now.